Brilliant. Well, hello, everyone. I hope you had a nice lunch. It was gorgeous. For those of you that got out and got some sunshine, I was very jealous. I was prepping panel sessions this afternoon, although I do have a propensity to get sunburned at all occasions, so actually quite nice not to be bright red for the afternoon. You all know who I am. I'm Charlie Hills. I'm your co-chair, but my day job is Chief Strategy Officer of Mando-Connect, and one of the things that we're really passionate about is research. We started doing our European research last year and presented it at this conference in Zurich last year, so really excited to present edition 2 to you all today.
Hi everyone, my name's Nick. I had a full plate of pickled herring about 10 minutes ago, so I'm concerned.
That's why he's over there.
Yeah, that's it. So I work at YouGov. I head up the account management team, essentially. If you don't know YouGov, we're a research data and analytics group. So we run market research worldwide. I think we operate in almost 60 markets now. We run research with millions of consumers each year. I've had the pleasure of working with Charlie and the team at Mando throughout my time there, about 4 years now. We have partnered on a number of things throughout that time, but today we're going to be talking to you about our latest partnership, which is our European white paper.
I can't recommend YouGov highly enough, which is, those of you that know that Mando-Connect is a WPP agency, is a somewhat controversial point of view with my CEO, but they've been an absolutely brilliant, spectacular research partner. So if you need anything, please ask Nick. So this is what we're going to talk to you about, European research. Because of customs, we had to all bring these in our hand luggage through. So there is a limited number of physical copies on the front desk. Please take them, please use them, please read them. Hopefully they'll be really useful. And for those of you that would prefer to have a digital copy, there's a QR code and you can download as well. We've gone onto a blue background rather than white slides. So Nick, I commission and author the research with the team at Mando-Connect. Nick runs the team that deliver all the data as part of it. But actually, we'd be remiss if we didn't talk to you about this brilliant community of European loyalty experts that we have brought together to do it, because this really is a team effort. One of the things that was so important to us in the research was to understand the facts, but also the stories. Why does it look like that in this market? What are the best programs in that market? You know, I've worked in the British loyalty market for over 20 years, and I know I've got so much to learn from France, from Hungary, from Denmark. So some really interesting and brilliant experts all represented here on screen. And we're lucky enough to have a few of them here today who'll be joining us on a panel afterwards for a Q&A. And obviously, you all saw Elliot's brilliant presentation earlier from Red Bull as well. So that's the team that put all this research together.
So what are we going to talk about for the next 20 minutes or so? Well, to start off with, I'm going to run through the research. Where's the data come from that has driven the insight in this white paper? We first ran this white paper about 12 months ago. So this being our second iteration, we've now got 2 data sets, which allows us to trend data over time. So we can start to see the direction that some markets are taking. Then we're going to deep dive into 8 real key pieces of insight, things in the white paper which we thought were worth discussing in more detail. And then Charlie and I are going to join a panel with Rasmus, Rick and Zsuzsa, who are around, but I can't see any of them, to get a real market nuance perspective on much of the data that's in the white paper.
So what does the research cover? What do you actually find in the pages? So Understanding Loyalty in Europe 2.0. So we looked at 24 European markets. So it's a pretty comprehensive study. It's not every single market in Europe, but it's most of them. This year we've looked at loyalty appeal and loyalty impact in those markets. In last year's paper we had membership as well, but that membership data isn't available until Q4 this year, but we didn't want to kind of hold it back for the conference. So you will get an updated version by the end of the year. There's 10 detailed market snapshots. So what we asked each of our experts to do was to take the data, take a deep dive analysis of it, and to look at what does it look like in my market? What does loyalty look like in my market? Why do I look like that? You know, why are the French different to the British, to the Hungarians, to the Polish? What are the particular dynamics in that market that are driving that data? And then we also asked them to pull out 3 case studies for their market that were particularly interesting. And that, in all honesty, I confessed earlier to Donna, is actually my favourite bit of the research, because because it's fascinating to see what other programs are doing in other markets. And actually, I was talking about Decathlon being a really interesting example of what they do in the British market being so different to what they do in the French market, for example. So even if you think you know a program, I can guarantee that you don't. And then we've got 3 deep dive program case studies. So these guys get a double page spread. So 3 brilliant programs. Matas program, so big health and beauty retailer in Denmark. We wanted to have one for the home of the conference. Canon Club, a really interesting program looking across multiple European markets, a real passion area, and actually how they're bringing photography and how do you do loyalty in photography? When you've got a super duper amazing professional photographer and a casual photographer at the other end, how do you create a proposition that unites them? And what's most interesting about that one is community. See what they've done in the community space, and then obviously the Red Bull case study, Oracle Red Bull Racing case study that you saw earlier, a really interesting application in sports. And then a quick loyalty gauge snapshot. At heart, I'm a total maths nerd. So what we've tried to give you is a very quick visual snapshot so you can look at, for your own program, how would it vary in those markets for appeal and impact. And it's kind of a 1-page summary of the research.
So where's the data come from? This is a quick shameless plug for YouGov, if I'm honest. So beware sales pitch. The data has come from one of our syndicated data products called Global Profiles. It's our global audience analytics and profiling tool, essentially. So what this is, think of it as an enormous data bank. We've got data on just over 266,000 consumers worldwide. We have data from 58 different markets. 24 of those are the European markets that we cover in the white paper. What we've done is, of these 266,000 different consumers, we've got them to all answer the same questionnaire. What that means is that our clients can build really robust, but also consistent audiences throughout each market, and then understand how the nuances change from country to country. How do attitudes change, behaviours, where do you shop, who do you bank with, for example. So it's a very powerful tool for cross-market analysis.
Oh, look at that for a title. Why do we do the research? 3 key reasons kind of inform what we do. So the first one is it's really important to understand. I think when we started this research, there was a lot of supposition, a lot of client-specific insight, a lot of sector-specific insight, and a huge amount of expertise. But when I asked people, how many people, what percentage of all these different European markets are members of loyalty programs, no one knew. How does impact vary from one market to another? No one knew. So really important to actually understand the truth and then make a data-led loyalty strategy. I'm pretty certain I'm a good company and that you'll all agree with that, rather than just making stuff up. So what behaviours really are, what people actually think and feel, and then critically, what impact loyalty programs have. And we look at functional and emotional metrics there. We can obviously only look at 4, and I am aware that all of you will have subtle variations that you need, but at a market level, actually, does loyalty have a positive impact in that market or not? Our second reason was about inspiration. I think, we were talking earlier about the importance of learning about different programs, the importance about getting different people's points of view, and actually, it's great to see those case studies and those stories in those different markets, for inspiration, for connection, for learning what works, and my personal favourite, the cautionary tale, which is actually what isn't working and why isn't it working, and what can I learn from that failure in order that we can do better in this market. And then lastly, because there's kind of a bit of a nerd component to us at Mando-Connect as well, we set ourselves up as having a data-led approach. So when we work with our clients and when we work with programs, we want everything we do to be informed by robust insight, and that's what's really driven the research and the partnership with YouGov.
So as I said, 8 key pieces of insight, and I think this is a really nice place to set the scene. We're looking here at membership data. As Charlie said, the 2024 data set is going to be released later in the year, so we're using the data from last year still. You can see the headline, 61%, that's an average across all the European markets, are members of at least one loyalty program. But as you'll hear for the next half an hour or so, there's a huge amount of variance when you look at a market level. That's as high as 86% in Norway and as low as 31% in Turkey. But what we've seen in the appeal and impact questions that we've asked, that we've rerun already this year, is that there's actually some quite dramatic changes within markets. So keep your eyes peeled. I'll be really interested to see how those rankings change as we get the new data back in a few months.
And for those of you that don't have a map of Europe like ingrained in your brain and can't work out which country is which, it's also available in a helpful table in the research itself, as well as this beautiful infographic.
So the second headline, this is, as I just said, it's about appeal and impact. So what's the appeal of loyalty programs? What's the impact of loyalty programs? We're looking specifically at appeal here. The headlines you can see, 55% think loyalty programs are a great way to reward customers. 42% think every brand should offer a loyalty program. And just over a third join loyalty programs each time they're given the opportunity. Now, interestingly, those stats have remained fairly consistent year on year from last year to this year. But there's actually been quite a lot of fluctuation in markets. It's just netted out at kind of a similar level. Norway, for example, has seen double-digit growth across all of those metrics, which, as we saw in the previous slide, loyalty is already a very established marketing tool in that market. So to achieve a double-digit growth is pretty impressive. It's not like it's coming off a low base. No market saw a significant decrease across all of those metrics. Some countries, Belgium, Bulgaria, and Turkey, if I remember correctly, all saw a marginal decrease in 2 out of 3, but I think only one was statistically significant. So well worth diving into the white paper to understand where your market sits.
And I think those European averages are really helpful when you're setting strategies and you're looking at which markets you should launch in and which markets you shouldn't launch in. Which market makes a great test market is one of my favourite questions. You want a market that's got a really high propensity to join if you're going to test something new and test a program. And it's thinking about actually how does this data apply to your particular challenge. When we start to look at a market by market level, and obviously the full detail is in the research, I promise we're not going to sit here for an hour and tell you every single statistic, but we just pulled out a couple of the key charts. So, do people think that loyalty programs are a great way to reward customers? Yes. So Great Britain, brilliant. Love it when a Brit comes top, particularly given our recent history of bad decisions. 74% of the British adult population think that loyalty programs are a great way to reward customers, and we've seen that consistently in our market, followed by the Polish, the Irish, the Germans, the Slovakians, the Spanish, the Bulgarians, the French, the Croatians, and the Italians, all kind of ranking really strongly. We haven't put all 24 markets in for every single thing, but what you'll see as a consistent theme is that the Danish, the Dutch, and the Turkish are pretty sceptical. And actually, we have got our Danish and our Dutch market experts here to talk to us about that today. So Brits think loyalty programs are great, and there's a really good hierarchy there. When we then look at should everyone have a loyalty program, right? This is, again, is a huge hot topic in loyalty. Saturation. Everyone else has got one. My competitors have got one. Should I have one? Is it worth the investment? If you look at James and Dom, the grocery sector in the UK, brands that said they were never going to get a program have launched a program. We're all keeping a very close eye on Aldi to see what they're up to at the moment, as one of the stalwarts that hasn't. But it's a really interesting thing. Is your market saturated? And actually, the answer in the data would kind of indicate that no. In the markets where nearly every brand has got a loyalty program, we're not seeing saturation. We're seeing a continued kind of drive and ambition for more loyalty programs. So, Ireland, heavily saturated, very sophisticated loyalty market, got lots of really cool stuff going on. 56% of the Irish adults are like, yep, every brand should have a loyalty program, followed by Bulgaria, Great Britain, France, Romania, Croatia, Poland, Spain, Slovakia, and Greece. And what we see again is that the Danish, the Dutch, the Finns, and the Swedes, again, more sceptical. But even within, some markets, we've seen some really big increases in this as well. So, if I look at my market, the British market, huge explosion of loyalty programs this year, but a huge appetite from consumers that they want more, 11% growth in this. So really interesting piece of data. The final appeal metric is about joining a program each time I'm given the chance. Now, consistent with last year, Poland is your market. The Polish absolutely love loyalty programs. Brilliant snapshot and provided by Open Loyalty in the research paper. We haven't got Pavel or Carl with us today, but the brilliant kind of contributing experts from last year. But a huge propensity to join, very heavily value-driven market, very successful. Followed by the Norwegians, the Irish, the Italians, the French, and so forth down to Hungary. And once again, the Dutch, the Danish, and the Swedish are playing hardest to get. So some really interesting pieces there, and who's going to join easily. And the way that we would use this is to then think about, well, do I need to do a sign-up incentive? Is that golden rule of loyalty that if you launch a new program, you have to offer an incentive so that people will trial it? Do they have to get a reward within the first 12 weeks? All those kind of rules of thumb maybe don't apply in some of these markets, because actually when you've got a market where 53% of the adult population will say, hey, I'll just join, you don't need to do anything. Why would you offer a sign-up incentive to that market? You might actually invest that budget in some gamification or some re-engagement of your members to kind of keep people active. At a European level, those are the only three metrics that we look at. At a British level, we dive into it a lot more. So we look at variables that drive repeat engagement, spikes at key points in the year and stuff like that. But at a European level, I will join a program each time I'm given the chance. Impact, really, really important. So at a European level, 42% of adults say it makes them more loyal. So if I'm a member of a loyalty program, am I more loyal to your brand? Thank God. 42% say yes. 35% say they are more likely to recommend your brand when they're a member of its program. 31% feel more emotionally connected, and 29% will spend more. Now, this is European benchmark data. It's helpful and it's directional. It's never absolute, because obviously if we looked at this for a telecommunications program versus a grocery program versus an automotive program, am I really going to buy a more expensive car if I'm a member of the loyalty program? Probably not so much. Am I likely to buy an extra loaf of bread? Yes, if I'm in a grocery program. So again, these are benchmarks that are useful to inform your strategy and your approach. When we then snapshot it into a kind of a single metric, what we built in this year's report is we have our appeal metrics, our impact metrics, and then our net score. And so you'll see this in the report. Each market has a gauge that looks like this. In Q4, when we get the membership data, we will add that in as well. So the membership gauge becomes then a really helpful metric for that market. How loyalty engaged are they? Do they join? Do they like it? Does it have a positive impact? What it looks like in a lovely graph. Gosh, this blue background is hairy. But what you can see here is all the markets along the bottom, and then how they perform for their appeal score and their impact score. So you can see Poland, for example, if you're thinking about piloting something in Europe, a really interesting market. So very high appeal, very high impact. And then you can see the sort of the subtleties and the patterns as you go through it. So a really nice kind of quick snapshot view of what does Europe look like and where should I be investing. The inspiration in the program, we thought we'd pull out loads of case studies, and then we realized that you'd probably rather hear about the panel and ask us kind of questions on the data. So there is a whole bunch of brilliant, brilliant, brilliant programs called out in the research paper. Please look at them. And they're in those two formats. So the 3 from each of the markets, and then the big 3 at the back, which are the kind of the big pan-European ones. Some of these you'll be familiar with, some of them you won't. So really dig into it. There's some brilliant stuff in there.
So a quick summary slide from me. Hopefully you agree the white paper gives a really, really comprehensive view of loyalty and the loyalty position across the continent. Pleased to say the Brits are certainly the biggest fans, but also seeing the Irish, Norwegians, the Poles very much leading the charge in a number of other metrics. Looking forward to joining the guys on the panel shortly. I mean, as we've seen, the Dutch, the Danish, for example, often ranking at the lower end. But what's interesting is when you really dive into the data, it's actually not that simple. In Denmark, for example, I think they saw a 10% growth this year in terms of saying that they would join a loyalty program each time they were given the opportunity. So the real, the devil's in the detail. It's worth looking into the raw data to understand what's going on in a market, or better yet, get a market expert to talk it through. So looking forward to the next stage.
Wicked. So, as we said, hard copies of the research on the panel. There isn't enough for everyone, so get in quick. QR code to download, or you can just go to mando.co.uk and get the full research. And obviously, we're here to share it as much as you need. And there's a whole wealth of data behind it. We've also done a podcast on it for Let's Talk Loyalty, which I think is releasing back end of this week. So there's lots of different ways of getting into the data and looking at it at a brand and audience level.